What is happening, everyone? We are in our last week of college basketball. We're heading into our last weekend.
We're not going to do this video ASMR.
We're heading into that last week, Final Four this weekend. We are finally down to the last 4 teams in college basketball. We somehow made it through this season. And
not quite yet, but mostly.
We've gone through this. Pretty much gone through this season. So I'm Chris, this is Rick, that is Josh over there. We're going to be talking about our predictions for just week by week and adding up the points, and whoever loses has to unfortunately face the punishment. Which, by the way, score update between all of us. Rick is in the lead with 30 points. I'm just 1 point behind at 29. Josh is in last place with 27 points. There is still potential for Josh to tie either Rick or I, and we will settle the tiebreaker in terms of total points for that last championship game. That's how we will settle that. So, the weirdness of the Final Four. There's no ACC team. There's no Big Ten team. There is one Big 12 team. There's a WCC team. There's an AAC team. And there's a Pac-12 team.
I also want to point out that Big 12 team, one who hasn't been to a Final Four in how long?
Like since the 50s?
71 years or so?
Yeah. So there's that. Plus we have a play-in team and an 11C team in the finals, or in the Final Four.
They wanted to be the first and Final Four.
the first 4 in the Final Four. And for the most part, there's the other 2 1 seeds and the 2 seeds. So in terms of the seeding, UCLA is the only weirdest one out of these 4. There's been a bunch of weird things that happened this year. We've had an 8 seed play a 12 seed. We've had a 12 seed move on to the Elite 8. And then we also
15 seed making a little run.
We had a 15 seed as well making their runs, and we had like 4 Big 12 or 4 Pac-12 teams in the Sweet 16. 5.
We had the
4?
Big 10
4.
that didn't
Colorado
do
was out.
Yeah,
We had the Big 10 that didn't do anything. The Pac-12 that did everything.
It came on strong.
West Coast, baby!
And also, in terms of this Final Four, kind of reminds me of the 2017 Final Four, in which we had the West Coast versus the East Coast, but this one for this year is West Coast of UCLA and Gonzaga playing Texas. Whereas in 2017, it was West Coast playing Carolinas. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that we can draw a lot of lines towards that would make this year absolutely hilarious.
But you know what we should talk about is what is the Ken Palm top 3?
Gonzaga was number 1, Baylor's number 2, Houston was number 3, and then Michigan number 4.
Yeah, but Michigan doesn't know how to take a quality shot in 18 seconds of game time.
That game was just so bad for both teams. Let's just be honest.
Michigan, you win that if it goes to OT. You win that if it goes to OT.
Right.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, we can analyze that just one game alone. Just absolutely ripping both Michigan and UCLA in those games. But this year also being a little bit different than that 2017, because in 2017 we could have had a West Coast finals between us and Oregon losing to North Carolina, whereas this year we're guaranteed a West Coast team versus a Texas team.
Yes.
That's something that we're definitely guaranteed this year. Again, this is also the first Final Four not featuring a team east of the Mississippi River.
West Coast, baby.
Right now it's just West Coast versus the Midwest, so we're going to see who, at least this coming weekend on Saturday and then on Monday, who's going to just take it all, who's going to hoist that crown.
It's the final 3 and the imposter.
And then and actually in all this too, minus UCLA, if Gonzaga beats UCLA, someone's going to win a title for the first time as well.
What do you mean if?
So we're going to have 2 tournaments in a row of someone winning their first ever title. Guaranteed. If Gonzaga beats UCLA. Because last one was Texas Tech versus Virginia.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's why. All right, so now on to this. Josh, I'm assuming you're going to have to pick against us in one of these.
Yeah,
Just
I'll
so
let
you can have a
guys do the
chance.
honors.
Yeah, so Rick and I will start off with our predictions. Josh, you can say who you want versus who you're
I'll get
gonna
into
pick.
my spiel once we get to.
So we're going to start off with the least fun of the matchups for us. The Baylor versus Houston, the Battle of Texas in this one. This to me is interesting just because it's going to be Baylor's offense. I think Baylor's going to win this game easily. Houston has the defense to stop them, but with what I've been seeing, at least from Baylor's offense, it's much like Gonzaga's. I can't see it being stoppable. But Baylor for the tournament so far through their 4 games, 44.8% from the field, shooting 37.4% from the three-point line, 14.3 assists. They do have 9.5 steals. However, that's very inflated by the game versus Hartford where they had 15 steals. All the other games were like 8-7 steals at the most. Their opponents, however, on the defensive end for Baylor, opponents are scoring 43.1% from the field, 26.4% from the three-point line, 16.8 turnovers per game. Again, a little bit inflated by that Hartford game with 24 turnovers that game from them. They never trailed against Arkansas. They had a very similar game with Wisconsin in terms of lead and point changes that Gonzaga had with Oklahoma. The first half was pretty much back and forth for like half that first half, and then second half came along and just Baylor took off. Wisconsin never really made a comeback in that game, and they did have a very big back and forth game against Villanova though, until like the last 10 minutes, and that's when Baylor turned it on. But similar plays to what I'm seeing between Baylor and Gonzaga so far this season for what we've been looking at. On the other side with Houston has only played double-digit seeds this entire tournament long. 15.
First time in
this is the
tournament
first time.
history.
Yeah, there's a lot of first times or first times in a while for this tournament. First time their seeds throughout this tournament: a 15 seed, a 10 seed, an 11 seed, and a 12 seed. Offense hasn't been the greatest, 38.9% from the field, 31.4% from the three-point line, 13.8 assists, kind of average, but 8 turnovers on offense. So they've been handling the ball really well. Opponent ends, they're actually being percentage-wise outscored, 39.4% from the field, 35.8% from the three-point line. Opponents, 10.2 assists, and they are forcing 11.8 turnovers on opponents as well. They had a rally back against Rutgers. They were down by 10 with 11 minutes to go, and I think they only won the game by like 3 or 4 points. And it was like the last shot that they really had to take in that game. And they also had a very close game against Oregon State.
It was a 6-point game, tied with about 5 minutes to go.
So that again, a very close game to Oregon State. But in fairness, Oregon State went to the Elite Eight, so they put a lot of surprises on a lot of teams, so I would knock them for that if it was just the regular season. But with this one, I think Baylor's offense has it. I can't imagine Houston's defense being able to stop this Baylor team.
Well, also Baylor had a good defense at the start of the season. That was their hallmark, was defense turning into offense. And Houston's just too streaky. I don't trust them. I think Baylor wins this in a single-digit margin. I think Houston, you're obviously good to make it this far, but yeah.
And then Josh, do you want to?
Okay. The real answer is Baylor, but points being needed here, we're gonna go Houston.
You're gonna take on Houston with this matchup, and it's honestly not that bad. Like I was looking at ESPN today, and it was like Baylor 58% probability of winning this game. So it's going to be a very close matchup between Baylor and Houston. I think Baylor's game is just going to be what they're going to be doing each and every game, where they're just going to take off in the second half.
It's going to be Baylor. I need to pick Houston.
You're going to pick Houston for the points.
It's just destiny that Gonzaga and Baylor play in the championship game, since we didn't get the regular season matchup.
Right, and I think that's what is going to be looked at for this tournament. So then now on to our fun matchup between UCLA and Gonzaga. I'll talk about UCLA first, and then I'll talk about Gonzaga because obviously I have a ton of notes on Gonzaga. UCLA
as do a lot of us.
UCLA is the second play-in team ever to make it into the Final Four. The first ever time was VCU in 2011, and that was with Shaka Smart, who is now no longer the head coach of Texas.
He's at Marquette.
Yeah, he's going to Marquette with a bunch of coaching changes that we have seen within the last day or two.
Jesuit.
With not only seeing Roy Williams retiring, probably
we don't know if it's still an April Fool's
Could have
joke.
been April Fool's.
We're thinking that it's not an April
Seems
Fool's
legit
joke.
at this point.
It's way too elaborate to not be. So, Roy Williams retiring, and then Chris Beard going from Texas Tech to Texas. So that was a quick turnaround for Texas to not only to replace their.
I mean, that makes
coach.
sense, though.
Right. And then, so for UCLA, their journey to the Final Four, they did have to do the playing game where they did go against Michigan State and had an overtime game. And then later on within the tournament, they had another overtime game, which was against Alabama. And I think those are really like the only 2 overtime games I can recall off the top of my head this tournament. There hasn't been.
No, it hasn't been a lot.
If most, there's probably like 1 or 2 games that I'm not thinking of at the moment, but there hasn't been many overtime games this entire tournament. Not to say that the games haven't been close. There have been a lot of close games that I thought should have been to overtime as well. But UCLA, at least within this tournament, through their 5 games, 43.9% from the field, 37.3% from the three-point line, 12.4 assists, 6.6 turnovers. They have the fewest turnovers of all these 4 teams that are in the Final Four. Opponent end, 41.8% from the field, 24.9% from the three-point line. There's been 11 assists from their opponents. It's kind of like a weird little pattern that they have going on, where it's like 16 assists the first game, then 5, then 13, then 9, then 12. So Gonzaga's pretty much destined for like 11 turnovers if you just go with this kind of a ratio trend.
Convenient. That's how many Gonzaga's averaging.
And then 11.6 turnovers that they're forcing from their opponents. Now onto the Gonzaga end. I will mention this, like I've been mentioning kind of all season long. They have been number 1 all season. Since preseason, they have been voted number 1 each and every week. They got the overall number 1 seed in the tournament, and now they're here at the Final Four, which is where they were destined to be all season long.
All season long.
So for their games, Gonzaga offense, 53.6%, field goal, they have only had 1 game below 50% from the field, and that was against Oklahoma, 49.1%. They are averaging 39.8% from the three-point line. They are averaging 20.8 assists. There has been only 1 game where they had less than 20 assists, and that was against Oklahoma with 12 assists.
That's disgusting.
And they also have 11.5 turnovers, which is almost an assist turnover ratio of 2.
Do we know the scoring margin for the tournament?
I just know this. I don't know the
Low
scoring.
20s.
It was like 20.8 points or something like that.
No,
No, it's like 20.5
Because
points.
of the first game was
the first game was a 44-point win. Oklahoma was 16.
Creighton was 17 or 18.
Creighton was 17 or 18. And then the one that we just played, USC was 19.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay. I think it's
So
like
because of that first game,
I think. Well, no, I saw it. I also saw the stat too. I forget who posted on Twitter, but Gonzaga versus all the seeds that were in their region, so including like Kansas,
beating
Virginia,
the 2, 3, 4, 5,
yeah,
6,
including
8, 16.
Kansas, Virginia, and Iowa as well in that mix. Gonzaga's average margin of victory with all of that was like 20.5 points. So yeah, and then the opponent end within this tournament, 40% from the field, 28.3% from the three-point line, 10 assists each game. Every team's average pretty much 10 assists, 10, 10, 11, 9. And then they are only forcing 10 turnovers a game, which...
oh well. Also,
darn.
You should put in parentheses points off turnovers, which is probably
Right.
close to 20.
Right. And I can even talk about points in the paint, because that's somehow been a thing this entire year for Gonzaga. Is like 60 points in the paint each and every
Can
game.
we also
it feels
take a
like.
moment to recognize Drew Timmy's steal in the first couple seconds? Yeah, and the first couple of seconds of that USC game.
USC, yeah. That's it. It was. There's been a lot this season that I can highlight. They have never trailed against Creighton or USC all game. They trailed by about 2 or 3 possessions very early on against Norfolk when the game was like 9-8.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Oklahoma had us the longest.
Oklahoma was definitely more back and forth throughout the first 9 minutes. Oklahoma did try to get back into it after those 9 minutes. Gonzaga just held the lead after that. Gonzaga was up by 19 points in the second half. Oklahoma got it to, I think, 9 points. I know they got into single digits.
Yeah.
And it really felt like they were going to force an overtime in that game, to be honest. Average points per game this tournament for Gonzaga. 88.25, which is lower than their seasonal average. However, their lowest is 83 points against Creighton. There have been 3 other games this tournament from Final Four teams that have been in 80 points. Houston versus Cleveland State, 87. UCLA versus Alabama, which UCLA scored 88 points. And then Baylor versus Arkansas, Baylor scored 81 points. No one's getting close to those 88, or getting close to those 88.25 points. And then Rick just mentioned that, yes, that UCLA-Alabama game did go to overtime. Within the first 40 minutes, UCLA scored 65 points. And then just took off in overtime.
They're like, this is how you score basketball.
Which they couldn't do against Michigan, by the way. They only scored 51 points.
It was the ugliest, worst. How did you guys make the Elite Eight? How?
Bill Walton.
I need him to cast our Final Four game.
No.
Please.
I will fly to Indy
UCLA,
myself.
UCLA versus Gonzaga. Who do we have?
You're asking me, who do you think's gonna win? University of Portland or what team is Shemek Karnowski playing for right now? Carlsbad? Or the Santa Cruz Warriors? Santa Cruz Warriors or Los Gatos High School? Who do you think's gonna win? It's gonna be Gonzaga.
Yeah, Gonzaga, again, easily Gonzaga.
25 points.
Honestly, yeah, that honestly seems like what it's going to be like. And I think just the stat alone of this team's averaging 88 points and none of the other teams have really gotten close to that within 40 minutes.
It's going to be hilarious to see Juzang try to score on Watson or Ayayi.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, we have one scoring option. You had one scoring option.
So then, Josh.
I'm sticking with Gonzaga.
That's the one thing you can't vote against with us.
I am sticking with the Zags on this one. Stay tuned for the championship matchup.
This team's just been way too good all year. It's just
So
if there's any year in the past for Gonzaga to do it, this is the year to do it.
So I was having lunch today with one of the basketball coaches at the school I work at, who also had the option of going semi-pro, but decided not to. He compared Gonzaga's performance to a European pro team.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's literally watching a European pro team play college hoops.
It's funny that too, because there's also just like that interview for whoever does football. The 2 people that do football, and he was just saying he doesn't believe in Gonzaga because there's no superstar on this team, or no player on this team that's going to go into the NBA and just become a Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. I forget who it was, but it's he only does
Skip Bayless.
Yes, he only does football, and which I think is hilarious because oh wait, it's March. Oh, here's all the college and NFL fans coming in.
Yeah.
They got nothing better to do.
Yeah, it's funny seeing all the college football fans just come in all of a sudden when it's January, February, and Gonzaga's playing the WCC schedule.
Michigan.
and all that. So, at least for Rick and I and Josh, I'm assuming you're going to have the exact same answer despite not having the same matchup. But Rick, between the destined game of Gonzaga and Baylor,
So here's the
who's going to
thing.
have it? Because this should have happened in November.
So we talked about Ken Palm having 1, 2, 3, and then 17 instead of number 4 because Michigan decided not to play basketball. Anyway, back to
But did UCLA decide to play basketball?
Okay. Anyway, so Gonzaga is projected to be 8 points per 100 better than Baylor, and so I like that gap is like the same gap between Baylor and like BYU.
Yeah, it's very noticeable within that too. But even then, when you do look at Ken Palm, it is still like Gonzaga, little bit of a gap, Baylor, and then gap, Michigan. Or that's what it used to be. It was like Gonzaga, Baylor, one tier.
Yeah.
Little bit of a gap, Michigan. Big gap, whoever number 4 was at the time.
But Baylor has fallen off. I think Baylor loses by 11 or 12.
Really? Going with that high scoring?
Or
Or is it because like they're like down by 6 and needed a foul to get back into the game?
it's going to be something like that, but I think Gonzaga has one single-digit victory this season.
That's also a point that I didn't even mention as well, is that Gonzaga's won by double digits, with the exception of West Virginia.
Score?
Yeah, you have to do total score.
Total combined, I'm going to
total
go
combined, just in case.
160.
I'm obviously going to have Gonzaga in this. Again, just the fact that Gonzaga has been averaging more points by a long shot compared to the other teams. And that, I think that alone is a 10-point difference if I did the math for the average points for the other teams, including Baylor. And I know Baylor's had probably the more points out of the other two. Baylor's been consistently 70, 80 points in that range. But Gonzaga has this. Gonzaga has this matchup. This is the year to win it. Also, it's nice to see Rem back in the Final Four, and I hope to see him in the championship as well. Unfortunately, I hope
with Gonzaga.
I hope for a very similar outcome than what happened in 2017 for him. But this time Gonzaga winning.
We still love you, Rem.
We still love you. We still want you. We'll always mention that as well.
We'll keep chanting for you to play for Gonzaga.
You still owe me the answers for that test in college algebra.
Also, do you remember me and Chris from bar?
But yeah, I'll have Gonzaga winning this. In total score, I'm gonna go 170. I think both teams can get 80 points between for both of them on the score line. I think Gonzaga. I think this will be the second single point win Gonzaga's had all season long, but it's gonna be like 8-9 points. It's gonna like almost be at 10. But I think they can both get 80 points in this game, especially for how fast we play for Gonzaga plays.
Gonzaga's winning by 9 points. There's 3 seconds on the clock. Rem commits a technical to let Gonzaga shoot the free throws to win by 10.
Just because.
He's like, and then he looks at his coach. He's like,
"Sorry, I got it." So then Josh,
"We were losing anyway, bud."
And Josh.
So, points aside, my ideal matchup: Gonzaga winning.
Right, but with what you have
My
to
prediction
call,
here is Gonzaga Houston because I need points, and then between that, I also need to go Houston. Sadly,
so you
to
can
get
tie
points,
me.
which I am very hesitant to pick because of the juggernaut called Gonzaga.
Yeah. So
But
you're
it's-
basically going to tie me.
Yes, the pick I gotta make, and I'm gonna go with 171 just to.
Oh, you're gonna go with the over?
The highs?
You're gonna go with
There-
I will say this. You're gonna go with the high on that one with Houston.
Yeah,
They've only had one 80-point game. The other games have been 60 points. They've been
We're
scored.
going for it.
in the
bold.
in the words of what's his
That
face?
doesn't even matter for
It's
me.
a bold strategy there.
If Houston,
No, because that
Oh,
tiebreaker matters.
Because
but the tiebreakers between the tiebreakers between the final score of whoever's in it, or
It's whoever's in it. So like if it does end up being Gonzaga Houston, like that's our final scores are that too. So I'm still saying 170 for that scenario as well.
Got it.
So if Houston makes it and loses,
Yeah, I'm still going 171 because I'm assuming it's going to be
You're
Baylor.
gonna do the higher score, okay?
Yeah, points aside.
Yeah, so the total points is just going to be for the tiebreaker. So that's at least what we have. So who do you guys think? Who's going to be coming out into the championship? Who's going to win it all? Who? Is this going to be Gonzaga's year? Is it going to be Baylor, Houston? Are they going to win their first ever?
Or UCLA.
I think it's going to be a dark horse Kentucky.
Just out of nowhere, just comes in from the top rope. So please leave your guys' comment down below. Please follow us on Twitter as well. We'll also post our links to Twitter down below in there. Tell him to make more videos. He's been making videos on YouTube as well. Tell him to make more.
I want a hiatus.
But until next time, please stay safe. Please stay healthy.
Stay tuned to my channel. Maybe there'll be a video of me eating some hot wings.
We will. At least I will still be doing videos after college basketball is done. I might take a little bit of a break just to celebrate, hopefully. And
Win or lose, we booze.
But I might take a little bit of a break. I might revive that whole mid-major player in the NBA kind of a thing. I still have some ideas going around with that stuff. So I will still at least be making videos come summertime. And after the championship, I will still be doing the 50 subscriber giveaway if we ever get there on this YouTube channel. So please subscribe as well. Please like the video. Please let us know who you think is the Final Four. So till the championship game, please stay safe. Please stay healthy. We're almost there.
Those